Hey guys, welcome back to the Building Blocks of Business, a podcast show where we dive in and explore various aspects of the business world. This show is brought to you by ESL and NITK. I am your host, Parth Mittal, BTech student at NITK. Today, you're listening to the very first episode of Season 3, LinkedIn Top Voices, a season which introduces you to entrepreneurs who have not only built successful startups, but have also created magic with their words and wisdom. In today's conversation, I have a very special guest with me. She's the founder and CEO of KoolKanya, which is building a community of self reliant women by empowering them to build careers they love. She was also nominated as one of India's LinkedIn Top Voices 2020 with over 8,000 followers on LinkedIn and 120,000 plus followers on KoolKanya's Instagram. Standing by the hashtag Raise Your Power, the very cool, the very inspiring Vanshika Goenka. Honor having you on the show, man.
Hi, Par. It's lovely to meet you. Thank you for having me today.
So we're talking everything from entrepreneurship to content to business, and I'm super excited to start.
Me too. Let's dive in.
All right. So firstly, could you take us through the journey of building Cool Kanya from the ideation to understanding the market and to launching the product?
So, honestly, it's been a pretty long journey, although it's just been 2 years, just in terms of learning. So, I would say mid 2019, I was working in a sanitary pad company, and I was going. We were in a meeting, and we were looking at how to redevelop the sanitary pad. And when I was there in the meeting, I looked around the room, and I realized that all of them were men. All the people in that room were men. And that's when I started asking myself the question as to where are the women in the room? Why aren't there enough women in the room? And how can we have more women in the room, right? If there aren't enough women creating a sanitary pad, which is largely which is a product worn by
Right.
women,
Right.
what is for other products? Why are women leaving the workforce, right? So these are the kind of questions that came into my mind, which led to a research project that I took up where I went to Bangalore, Delhi, Hyderabad, just to sort of understand where, spoke to women from different age groups, different backgrounds, moms, or people, even young people entering the workforce, trying to understand why, even things like what motivates them to work, or if
Right.
people have left work, why did they leave work? What changes would they have wanted if they didn't want to leave work? Right, if they wouldn't have, if they, for them to stay in work, for instance, right? So first was the research project, followed by then starting content. So I created a very easy WordPress site just to sort
Okay.
of understand, how, what users are looking for, or what organic traffic am I getting, what blog topics are working, right? Then obviously starting off a little bit with Instagram, and then what I saw what I tried to do was create company scores, because I wanted users to have visibility and transparency into understanding what companies are offering them, right? And then eventually give them jobs. But there was a pivot there, because when I started speaking to companies, they said we need users first. They would want to know what is the user base like on the community before giving jobs. So then
Right.
I started creating the community. So that's where the Cool Kanya community came about. Then post the Cool Kanya community, we launched learning, right? And now we're launching the job board and our company scores again. So I think it's been a lot of pivoting, a lot of understanding both the demand side and the supply side, and then creating the product. And I would say we're still moving, we're still pivoting, we're still understanding, learning, changing. So yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. So, like you mentioned about pivoting, how do you understand when to pivot and like what's the right time?
I think it's data part largely, right? You can't make any decisions without data. So even if you, I think one thing that we do is we first go ahead with MVPs or pilots, see how the pilots do before then going down and, asking more people to be involved in the project and then building up the project, right? So making little small pilots, seeing how the pilots are doing. Even small things like, so for example, if I'm developing a learning course on a topic and I'm not sure about the topic, but maybe speaking to the users, or even doing something like an Instagram live, right, which is on
Right.
a product that already exists, zero investment, getting someone of that topic, seeing what the interest is like, seeing the quality of questions. Okay, if there is interest around this topic, there may be value in creating more around this topic, right? So I think one thing is deciding what decides pivots are largely, I would say, data. You have to make data driven decisions in today's world, and a little bit of gut as well,
Right.
because if you've been in this industry for 1.5 years, you sort of have the pulse of what the users are looking for or what they need, and then you pivot accordingly or change your plan product accordingly.
Makes sense. Okay, so just for the listeners' context, Vanshika ma'am is the daughter of the Goenkas running the
Yeah.
Welspun group. So, ma'am, despite coming from a family that's running one of India's largest business conglomerates, what made you start your own company? I mean, yeah, you have delved into the ideation and stuff, but where was that point where you're like, I can do this or I should be doing this?
So I think it's passion, right? Like I've seen both my parents creating a product from scratch. So part of that entrepreneur bug is still in me. And
Right,
that's when at some point I was like, I want to build something and I want to do something of my own, because I think when you're the learning there, the curve is very steep as well. You get to learn a lot when you're building
right.
something from scratch, ground up. Um, Having said that, the reason why I chose to do KoolKanya rather than Welspun at this point is because of passion. I love what I do. I wanted to always do something in the space for women, and that's the reason why I started this. I didn't know what 1.5, 2 years ago that I would still do it for 2 years. It was more like, let's say I want to see if I get scale with this, and it's a continuous process. I'm going to continuously working at it. But having said that, at some point I will potentially join my parents. I don't know when, but that is also part of me, and that is also part of my passions. So I will probably do that. I don't know when, but I want to make sure I see KoolKanya through and take it to the next level.
So, like being through this journey, what are two things that you have seen a founder should do and founder should not be doing? Two things each.
So I think one thing a founder should not do is doubt herself or himself. And I think another thing a founder should not do is be indecisive, both of which I've done before and I've learned. Um, Founders should do is get the best people, invest in people, and what else a founder should do is be comfortable with failing.
Okay. So just
So
to add on, this is actually from one of your LinkedIn posts itself, and you mentioned about micromanaging. So I think that also so a
Mhm.
founder shouldn't be doing, right?
Yeah, and I've done that. If you read in my LinkedIn post.
Yeah. Okay. So before building Cool Kanya, you were at Brown University, which is an Ivy
Yes.
League college. So how do you think the Ivy League education has helped you, and what would have you missed without that?
So I think Brown in itself has taught me a lot. I think more than just the education system, it is, speaking to people from different cultures, exposure. Largely at Brown, I was also part of different organizations where, you take charge, you pull things through. So again, leadership skills come in. But I would say if there's that one thing that, Brown University has taught me is how to structure my thoughts coherently and
Mm.
how to write them out and express myself.
Mm.
Because I studied political science, which is not even close to what I'm today doing. But the main
Right.
takeaway from it was, taking large chunks of information, processing them, and presenting them in a way that is useful and coherent. And that really is helpful today, even with users, or even with communicating to investors. Taking the data, what are the inferences, what are the takeaways, how can I communicate that in the best way possible.
Okay. Amazing. So let's talk about a little bit about content. So being nominated for LinkedIn Top Voice this 2020, I have two questions for you. Firstly, how did you get to achieving that? And second, how has it impacted your company and professional life?
So, but I honestly wish I could tell you I had a plan. It was a challenge to myself that I'm very shy of being on video, or I was just a little skeptical because I would judge myself a lot. So I put myself a challenge that I want to record 2 to 3 minutes of a topic or a conversation weekly and put it up on LinkedIn.
And
There
now
was
does
no
it?
idea. I didn't know LinkedIn top voices existed until they wrote to me, to be honest, right? So I would just write one post a day and one video a week, and that's about it. There was no plan, there was no strategy per se behind it. It was just that.
Now it
And
doesn't
yeah.
look like it's beautiful content and you like confidently speaking and
So
okay.
yeah, but I think one thing that happened with that, and as a result of that, which was great, was that people started a lot of inbound leads start coming in. So that's been great as a result of LinkedIn Top Voice.
So going from LinkedIn to Instagram now, KoolKanya has a very quirky, fun, yet a very educational Instagram page. So since the rise of the digital economy, everybody wants to be a content creator. So what are few things that you would like to tell someone who's looking to start?
The one thing on Instagram that I would say when you're looking to start is define very clearly what you are and who you are. Today, so for example, even if you take something like KoolKanya, platform for careers, there are more than hundreds of platforms out there, right?
Right.
But you need to be very clear about what is my tone of voice on this platform, what is my
Mm,
USP, right? And third thing that also adds a lot of value is the branding
mm,
aspect of things, right? The
mm,
color tones, things like that, because Instagram as a handle is very visual.
right.
So whatever you communicate has to be uniform, both visually as well as in terms of tone, voice, things like that. Another thing I would say for a platform like Instagram is it's important for you to stay on top of trends because that's how the algorithm works. So for example, reels are trending, use reels. Which music on reels are trending, know that. Obviously, like I said earlier, data is the queen. So make sure you know data, what is working, what is not. So yeah.
Okay, great. Uh, in one of the places I'd read that you have a keen interest in the power of empathy in product design. Could you expand on that?
So I think empathy is really important, even in product design. When you think of creating a product, to improve the user experience, right? Like right from what is the product going to solve, like defining what is the problem we're solving, right? What can I learn about the user, right? So like before I start creating my product, what can I learn about the user? Once a user uses the product, how do I want the user to feel? How do I want the user to engage with the product? How do I want the user to act, right? A lot of that's when I say when you're designing the product, you need empathy becomes a key cornerstone, right? Because we did things like empathy mapping. What is
Mhm.
the user saying right now? What do we want the user to say about the product? What is the user thinking right now? What do we want the user to think after the product? What is the user feeling right now? What do we want the user to feel after using the product? What is the user doing right now? What do we want the user to do? So both it's about finding what the user does in general and where do we want to take them, and then building those kind of actions, think way we write things, positions of things in the user interface, the user experience around this empathy map. So that's why I say empathy is very important when creating a product.
Okay. So, since your platform is a very women-centric platform, do you think empathy plays much more important role in such a business?
Definitely. I would say in any business today, I think even as
Mm,
leaders, empathy is very important. You need to be able to empathize with not only your user but also your team member, with anyone facing a problem. I think empathy is very important. So I would not say particularly only for KoolKanya. Yes, probably a little more important. But I think it's the world of it should be the norm for every product, every company today. Really, yeah.
right. So, since you work with a lot of women, could you tell us about one or two stories which have really impacted you, and also how has School Kanya changed you as a person?
Okay. So I think one story that I remember, and I've said this a lot because it stuck with me from early days of school, kind of, where we were just a community, and this woman had left her work, and she was a consultant, and she left work because she had a son, and 5 years later, she'd still not gotten back to work. And she said this story where her son came up to her and was just like, mom, how you get pocket money is exactly how I get pocket money. So sort of he was just like, आपको भी pocket money मिलता है, मुझे भी pocket money मिलता है, right? And she felt really demeaned at that point that I'm not earning my own living, to the fact that the son who I left work for is coming and telling me this, right? So as School Kanya, we actually helped her set up her own marketing business.
Wow.
That's one story which I think resonates a lot. Another, we have a lot of stories on confidence building, that KoolKanya has helped a lot of women build their confidence up again, whether they're just starting their jobs or whether they've left their jobs, right? Like, I think one thing which women in general, it's a known fact, and even in data, that women struggle with lower self-confidence. So that's something,
Yeah, yeah.
through speaking, through coaching, those are things that we really work on, and we've seen a change in that. So that has
Yeah.
been really hard.
Right. Just to add on, I mean, there's actually a study on this that if a woman is like 8 out of in her capabilities, if she's like 8 out of 10, she would rate her 6, and a guy would rate her like 11 out of 10. You know.
That's what you see it in resumes. So if
Oh,
you see resumes, women will only apply to jobs if they meet 100 on 100 of the criteria. But men are more likely to apply even if they meet 70% of the criteria.
right.
Right? So there's like that whole issue of like, okay, I'm not that good enough. I need to meet everything on the job description before I even apply. Right?
Mm,
So that is something we keep experiencing.
okay. Okay. Amazing. So I learned a lot till now, and it's been pretty fun. Now let's move on to a new session that we have introduced. That is the rapid fire round. So I'll be asking you a few questions, and you don't have to think much. You just have to say this or that, and directly, like you don't have to give me a justification for that. All right? Okay. So let's start. Funding or bootstrap,
Bootstrap,
family or business,
business,
angel or venture,
venture,
fame or money.
both.
I know you can't say for
Money,
small team or large team.
efficient team, very
Okay.
small team,
Okay. Fresher or experienced,
experience,
okay. Freemium or paid,
premium.
dancing or weightlifting.
Oh, dancing.
Okay, yeah. Please check out dances on Instagram. I linked out beautiful.
Oh,
Okay. Online shopping or shopping in a store.
online shopping.
Some of the best books or podcasts.
I would say Phil Knight's book on Nike for sure. Zappos, delivering customer experience. Then what else? I love reading, but right now I'm reading something by Vex King, which is a little more spiritual, so I don't think that will resonate with people. But yeah, I would say I think Zappos delivering customer experience, even Netflix's book recently, the second one, by Reed Hastings, is really good as well for people who are looking to get into looking to either run a business or even are working elsewhere. And Phil Knight's book on Nike. That's one of my all-time favorites. I remember crying at the end of the book. So it's
Wow.
like I love books which are autobiographies or biographies, have a lesson in it, and also talk about work and business. So yeah,
If I gave you a time machine to go back in the past and do anything, what would it be?
go back to college.
Okay. And relive that whole thing, or would you like to change something? Just experience it.
Just experience it again. It was the best time.
So at the end, what would be a message for college students or 20-year-old Vanshika?
I think maybe just to myself, I would tell myself, believe in yourself more. You don't need to have everything on your resume to succeed. You can still learn, and the experience is the best teacher.
It's been a great conversation, ma'am. Thank you so much for your insights on your very inspiring entrepreneurial path and for taking out time for this to happen. By sharing your journey with our listeners, I am very sure that you've inspired many, including me. And with that, we come to the end of today's episode. Thank you for patiently listening. I hope you took away something valuable from today's episode of The Building Blocks of Business. Until next time, stay home and stay safe.